And good afternoon, Central Texas. This is the Real Estate Zone, our weekly radio show about Central Texas real estate. My name's John McClellan. I'm a local mortgage banker here in town. As always joined by Kevin Bown with 12 Rivers Realty. Broker,
hello, John.
Austin native, good friend. Kevin, what's happening?
You know, it is beautiful outside today.
Well, it is January in Austin, Texas. So,
it is.
You know, I find that February seems to be the coldest month.
February.
Yeah, well, that's my personal.
It's your personal experience.
Personal experience. That's why I like to travel in February.
I have 90% of my voice today. 10% is still recovering. You should have heard me on Wednesday. If my forgetful fiasco of taking my allergy medicine had happened 3 days later, I would have sounded like this.
Oh, you forgot the.
I got complacent.
You forgot the cocktail.
Never
right?
get complacent.
You think that the cedar's gone? No, I do it every day. I got the nose spray. I got the Allegra D. Every day in the morning and at night.
We're coming to the end, though.
We are coming to the
end.
The
end is in sight.
Well, the good news is pills make it better. So does nose spray when it comes to that. But, you know, it's funny. We talk about Austin. We talk about the weather here. And, you know, it's hot in the summer. The winters here are actually very, very mild comparatively. I personally think February is a cold month. But, hey, listen, if we only have 1 month of, you know, really cold and yucky weather out of 12, I count us very lucky, right?
It's definitely true, right? That there are swings of weather here. That's the saying. If you don't like the weather in Austin, Texas, just wait 15 minutes.
So what do you think about the weather when it comes to real estate? I was expecting a little bit of a slowdown here in the Austin area coming into this year, and we're seeing the exact opposite.
That had been our prediction for the last probably 6 months of last year. We're seeing signs. Okay, the slowdown is here. Multiple, all across channels, we're seeing the slowdown begin. And something changed right at the end of the year. Interest rates fell pretty significantly.
Yep.
And it wasn't all crickets. Suddenly, buyers raced back into the market, and we saw all of the numbers switch back into go mode, and we're in the midst of that now.
Well, I think that's further evidence that the sellers here in the Austin area had basically jumped the shark, right? Started asking for prices that nobody was willing to pay. It coupled with higher interest rates, it really put it out of not only just people's financial reach, what they wanted, but also what their perception is that they actually wanted and what they wanted to pay for that, right? And with that drop in interest rates, you know, over 0.25%, maybe even close to 0.5%, that's a huge, huge deal for affordability and really brought some houses that were out of people's mental range, right? Not just their financial range, but their mental range. It brought it back to where they could. And we definitely, consumer confidence has been up. I think that's another reason that people have got off the got off the wait boat, right? Now, I will tell you that you know, the news cycle for the last 3 weeks has been pretty harsh, I think, on consumer confidence. And I think when those numbers come out here, I'm not sure when they're coming out, but when they do, I think we're going to see that the government shutdown and the news coverage of it probably led to a little bit of drop in consumer confidence nationwide. I think everybody was feeling it. Maybe that may have slowed it down just a little bit, even though we are seeing an uptick right now.
Well, you know, and John, this has me thinking about maybe this is a project for some undergrad UT psychology student to look at our market, because one of the things that we've seen here this year is that these interest rates they've moved rapidly up and rapidly down, and you and I we've seen, and there's tons of data now to look at the charts about how reactive our market has been to that. So that affordability lever is moving things around. However, when we take the long look, if we look back at 5, 10, or 20 years of Austin's real estate market, we can clearly say that houses are much less affordable now than they used to be. That wages haven't been increasing fast enough as prices have been increasing. And so it's like the allegory of the boiling frog, right? That if the water is raised up slowly, they don't realize that they're being cooked to death. But if you raise it really quickly,
until they smell
the end, I guess, right? But it does, you know. So when we're talking in these matters of 2, 3, 6 months, this buying activity does turn on and off, and perhaps it's because those consumers can remember what rates were 3 months ago. I don't know.
So let me ask you a question. So if you're a person out there, if you're a family out there thinking about selling their house right now, but they don't know what the timing should be. You know, everybody says, oh, wait till the summer or the spring buying season to put it on. What would be your advice to people out there or to families out there who are thinking about listing their house right now? Should they wait? Should they go ahead and take advantage of these low interest rates and maybe a little bit higher demand? I haven't seen their stats today, but last week we were very short on inventory.
Yeah, I mean, that question comes up quite a bit, and when it's coming from someone who is ready to sell. And that's the first question of, well, are you ready to sell, or does it make better sense for your family to sell at a different time? But if someone's ready to sell and they ask that question, should we wait until the spring or summer months? I would say no, don't wait. That the only way to guarantee you don't sell your house is to not put it on the market.
Right.
So if you're ready, then go for it. Yeah, jump into these low rates because the buyer activity is quite stoked up right now if it were a fire.
And have you had a chance to look at the stats? I wonder how those inventory numbers are looking comparatively to last week. Obviously, They were not even close to what we needed, nor have they been close to where we've needed for the past probably 4 years. You've got those numbers.
I've got them.
Your ears are smoke's coming out your ears.
They're 2 seconds old, so you're gonna be really happy with the freshness of these stats.
Great, nice. I like that.
6,562 active listings, 2,977 pending listings. That pushes our ratio down to 2.20.
Okay. The problem with that is that's less actives than last week when we talked about it, right? And more pendings than last week when we talked about it here on the show. So that doesn't help me. Now, it says, hey, there's a lot of demand, price pressure, right?
Yep.
Not enough houses to go around. But I guess at the end of the day, we need more inventory. To have a hotness ratio of that closing to pendings ratio of 2.2 in January.
Well, and that's the thing. That hasn't made the sort of mainstream news yet about this stats correction. We're in many cases on the sort of evening news reporting stats that are 30 and 45 days old. So this is a nice window for our listening audience because this is going to be a little dip. Or probably last week was the real dip, where if you made a purchase decision or put something under contract then, you're coinciding these low interest rates with this inventory ratio that's suddenly tightening up. This is a 10% tightening in 1 week towards a seller's market. So if you're a buyer, this is a good time to be out there and kind of jump on something.
And if you're selling, so back to my original question, if I'm thinking about selling a house, if I'm a family thinking about moving in the next 6 months, do I wait for the spring buying season, summer buying season, or is now a good time?
If you're a buyer, you said.
If you're a seller, if you're selling a house. Again,
so if you're ready to sell, where are you going to move? Do you have somewhere to move? Right. So
it's true.
It depends on when the need is. So I would.
So that's like this feedback loop of why we don't have any inventory, right? Because hey, I want to sell my house, but where am I going to go?
It sort of is in that Austin, it's the last stop on the train in many ways, and that's kind of silly. But also when we're looking at bell curves of what's everybody doing, we have been able to watch investor activity jump from California to Phoenix, Vegas, or Vegas, Phoenix, Austin, and so. In many cases, this is the destination city, and that's also representative of where job creation is happening, and that may lead into what we're going to talk about on the second half of the show, which is how can we derail this, so we can put a little pessimism out there.
All right, guys, you're listening to the Real Estate Zone. The phone number, if you'd like to be a part of the show, 512-836-0590. That's 512-836-0590. Don't forget, you can call or text to that number, 836-0590, with any questions or comments you have about Central Texas real estate. We have a great show for you today. We're going to be talking, obviously, what can derail Austin, right? Kind of go down that rabbit hole. We're going to be talking about interest rates, talking about some examples of job hubs around Austin area, and that's where higher demand for housing is. And we're going to talk about some of the top employers here in the Austin area. And number one's kind of a surprising one. They probably flies a little bit under the radar, but yet I bet everybody here has walked into one of their stores. Everybody walked into one of their stores. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the show. This is the Real Estate Zone. My name is John McClellan, local mortgage banker here in town. As always, joined by Kevin Bown, local real estate broker. We're live here every Saturday from 3 to 4 p.m. right here on News Radio KLBJ. We're on our 14th plus years doing the show, reaching out to our extended family who is our listenership, including some of our good friends. And I want to give a big shout out to one of my very good friends. That's Josh Flores, been working with me for 14 years at Supreme Lending here in Austin. Josh turns the big 4-0 now.
Wow.
So I pointed out to Josh the other day, I go, hey, bud, when you came to work for me 14 years ago, do I seem like an old guy? He goes, yeah, you seem like a really old guy. I go, just remember, you're 4 years older than I was at that time right now. So just put it into perspective, buddy. But hey, listen, Big shout out, Josh Flores. Happy 40th birthday, bud. I will see you tonight for this celebration.
Happy birthday, Josh.
40 seems young now.
Yes, it is.
How does it feel? Does that seem young for you too?
I've passed that clock.
I know
clock.
you have. I know you have.
Yes.
Your wife recently just passed that too.
She did.
Happy birthday to her too.
Yes, happy birthday.
She looks more like 29.
She's got Josh beat on the hair department.
Yes, she does.
Government shutdown. Can I get an update from you, because we have got this temporary reprieve, and it may or may not come back. But
3 weeks. I mean,
I want to know how it affects residential mortgage lending. You're the residential mortgage lending guy. Has it thawed out? Is there a backlog? Are we caught up? Can VA and FHA and USDA buyers, how are they affected?
Fannie Mae, fine. Freddie Mac, fine. Jumbo loans, fine. FHA, fine for the consumer. For the mortgage bank, it's a little tougher. We can't get loans insured, but that doesn't affect the consumer. VA doesn't affect the consumer. USDA loans, on the other side, they have to issue a commitment on every file, and their offices have been closed down. So there's a huge backlog right now to issue these commitments for USDA loans. And just for everybody's reminder out there, USDA loans, it's not milk or food or anything. This is actually to help you buy a house. It's a zero down program available throughout the United States for rural areas. And there are some areas around Austin, many areas around Austin actually, that qualify for this in the Austin area. But it's in one of the best loans out there, unless you're doing a VA loan. It's very low, quote unquote, mortgage insurance, really not mortgage insurance, but it's very low, zero down payment and good interest rates. But yeah, unfortunately, there's been a break. So I guess Congress is coming back. There's going to be a 2-week or 3-week reprieve for this. We'll see what happens. I wish that when they said it was a government shutdown, that it would just be the White House and Congress that shut down, right? And just hold it into there and hold back their paychecks. Right. But I'm sure that's not how it's going to work. Politics are politics.
So how long to clear the backlog? Do we know? Is there even any possible way to speculate?
There's no way to know. There's thousands of USDA loans that are done probably across the United States on a daily basis. And these, they're quote unquote underwriters at their local offices have to go through each one and put out the commitment on it. And I can only imagine how backlogged they are with the pending commitments out there. So if you're been trying to close on a USDA loan and you heard that the government is back, just make sure you are patient, because as the family selling and the family buying, make sure you're patient, because there is a backlog and it's going to take them a little while to get through it. So anyway, all right, guys, phone number 512-836-0590. One of our favorite things to do is talk about different areas around town. We went over some of the Austin MLS, total MLS stats a few minutes ago, looked at the ratio. If you're thinking about buying or selling in a particular location, or just want to know how your neighborhood's doing, or your bedroom community, or street, or whatever it is, give us a call, 512-836-0590. That's 512-836-0590 with your calls or suggestions about these different areas. You can also text to that number, 836-0590. Kevin, I heard we had a texter. We got text.
We were texted. I'm not sure if it's meant for our show, but they wanted to know, why are some kids obsessed with Fortnite?
Have you not played Fortnite?
And how can I get my kid off of Fortnite?
This is how you get your kid off Fortnite. You throw him across to the ground and you sit down and you start playing.
Okay. So maybe this was meant for you.
Maybe it was meant for me. Yeah. I do know some, I do have a young son. Well, young, he's 19, but I know that that's a very popular game out there. To be played by kids. I don't know what it has to do with real estate, other than a shrinking map, which that's kind of how Austin feels right now. There's less and less inventory, and in Fortnite, the map shrinks over time.
And that does put
Not
pressure.
that I've ever played this game before.
Your understanding.
From what I've heard from my
reading from Wikipedia.
Friends. Yeah, exactly. That the map shrinks, and that's kind of a good metaphor for the Austin area, right?
Yeah.
As the inventory shrinks, demand goes up, but there's still players on the board. Where do you go?
And there's new players entering, right? We have relocations that are people continuing to pour into our area.
And let's talk about something. Let's go back a year. We were talking about the new tax laws that changed as of 2018, right? A lot of people heard about it last January 1st of 2018 is when it went into effect. A lot of people said, "Oh, wow, that sounds it sounds like I'm going to be paying more in taxes here, especially if I live in a state that has state income tax, and I already have maxed out my SALT deduction, which is state and local taxes." But I think what's about to happen, and it may already be happening, is that people being slapped in the face by when they actually pull up TurboTax or whatever it is, and they put their numbers in, because everybody's getting their W-2s right now. They're going, whoa, what just happened? The reality of it, I think, is now starting to sit in, even a year ago, because now the consequences are at hand, right? I think that you may actually see more people who had their head in the sand, by lack of a better phrase, over the last year. But now, as they actually start to feel this happening, they may be looking to states that have either lower state taxes or none at all, and Texas being one of them. Texas also being in the forefront of job creation here in the United States. And that's why we see people moving here. And I think we may see an additional wave as these people start to realize, hey, this is a real deal.
Yeah, it's a real thing. And John, we've noticed over this 14 years we've been on the air and studying the way that Austin's growing and going through the tech boom, what has happened with relocation patterns, that as the workforce, in many ways, jobs have modernized and become non-local. So we think about, and you and I see this because we do deal with these relocating jobs, that people are less tethered to their physical space. And what I mean is that before, let's say that if a husband and wife both had jobs in physical spaces, that one getting a job opportunity in Austin could still maybe not be enough reason to move if the other was anchored in California, let's say.
Right.
But now, increasingly, we have more and more couples where one is able to work virtually from any location. And so if the other, who was tethered to a physical space, gets a job opportunity in Austin, then they can make that move much, much, much easier. And if both are in sort of a virtual space and not tethered, that I guess my argument here is that the job force and the rate that we are tethered to physical space is much different than it was
absolutely
10 years ago and 40, 50 years ago, where many of these models have been built. And we're seeing that. And I think you're right. This spring will be a time when we may see unprecedented shuffling around the country.
And not just to Texas, but to other places,
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. But we know that Texas is high on that list on sort of other tax rates being low when you look at that blended tax rate. So it's going to be a popcorn.
We're going to keep an eye on it for the
popcorn
show. Popcorn type
of
listeners,
a
right?
year.
All right, guys, phone number 512-836-0590. That's 512-836-0590. We do have lines open. Speaking of our lines that are open, let's go to Edison. Edison, thanks for calling the show. You had a question for us. Hello. Are you there?
Hey.
Hey, Edison. It's kind of... I won't even go into the joke, but we're trying to get a hold of you. Can you hear me, Edison?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry. The question is about the neighborhood Traviso. I have a home there. Interested. I have to relocate, and I'm wondering how thought after that neighborhood is, and aspect of selling and everything else.
Let me ask a couple questions. How long have you owned the home?
2 years.
2 years, and was it a new construction when you bought it?
Brand new, yeah.
Brand new, I noticed that there is still a lot of construction in those neighborhoods, right? So, that's where your competition is going to be. Kevin, thoughts?
Yeah, I have the stats up here, and there are 31 active listings in Treviso.
Not including any new construction.
Right.
This is
resales. Existing, yeah, and 11 pending. So this, like as you say, this neighborhood still has a lot of new activity. But let's look at this ratio just to get an idea on the resales. 31 to 11. That ratio is 2.82. So not bad. Here's where sort of what John's point will probably line up. When we look at the median price of the active listings, that median price is $503 for the actives. And when we shift back over to the pending listings and we look at the median price there, so those that are under contract, the median price is actually about the same. So that's good. So you're not seeing that huge discounting that can take place in some neighborhoods where new construction is still delivering. Now, I was recently in Treviso with some new construction buyers, and we're noticing that those prices are continuing to come up. It's not one of the neighborhoods where they're having to do massive incentives to clear the product. This is for our other listeners out along 1431 and the northwest side of Austin into Leander. So it's a neighborhood that has good access to our tech employment.
Yeah, so I think the answer to your question, Evan, I mean, the ratio is not as strong as it is in the MLS as a whole, but the neighborhoods, the pendings to active and the ratios are in line with each other compared to the pendings and listings. If I were you, I would research, or with your real estate agent, research some of the new construction over there, see what their what kind of options they have that they're selling now and what price point they're at right now. And you may want to come in line with that, knowing that your house is 2 years older than that, and that some of these builders out there do give some incentives, right, which you may have to do when you sell your house.
That's right. I appreciate that. Thank you. Do you have an idea on the time to sell expectations, like 60 days, 90 days?
Yeah, sure. So taking a look at those, we'll look at those pendings and also those that have sold in the last 90 days so that you can kind of get an idea of what that neighborhood's doing. And that median in that group is, John's giving me the symbol, 92 days.
92 days. So get you about 3 months. Edison, thanks for listening. We really appreciate the phone call. Guys, we got to take a break. When we come back, we're taking more of your phone calls at 512-836-0590. My name's John McClellan. You're listening to The Real Estate Zone, and we'll be right back.
This is The Real...
And welcome back to the show. This is The Real Estate Zone, our weekly radio show about Central Texas real estate. My name's John McClellan. This is The Real Estate Zone. We're here live every Saturday from 3 to 4 p.m. right here on News Radio. 14th year on the air, working on number 15. Kevin, how's it going? 15 years?
15 years on the radio. That's right.
Almost 15 years, yeah.
Almost 15 years and longer. This is my 20th year in Austin real estate, and you're
a little bit longer.
A little bit longer than that in Austin mortgages. We should do our when do we hit 50 added up years of experience together.
We may be getting close.
Have a combined silver.
We may be getting close. We may be getting close.
Okay, well, we need somebody to check on that.
Yeah, we need a list out there, right? To make it.
Do we have to give away lace or china or something?
We get stuff.
Oh,
Kevin. we get stuff.
We get doilies.
All right, guys. Phone number 512-836-0590. We have lines open if you have questions about Central Texas real estate, about your current mortgage situation. Give us a call, 512-836-0590. Call or text to that number. Let's go to John in Round Rock. John, thanks for calling. You had a question for us.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Yes, I've got a home in the outside of Round Rock, north. It's right off of 1431, Sandbass Road, Great Oaks in that area. Half acre, 2,500 square foot, all stone. Neighborhoods on the upswing. It's about a 35-year-old neighborhood. So I've been upgrading my home and making some updates, considering a sale. If you guys, I'm going to hang up in a minute, but would you mind talking about the types of improvements you make in a home where you get a positive return on those, and which ones to avoid, including whether or not a new HVAC system would be wise as part of just making the home ready to sell?
All right. Any questions? You had anything specific you want to ask Kevin about the property? John, how old is the property?
It's about 1985. It was this is a nice area. It was just Randy Marine, Steve Stiffelmeyer. These were homes that were spec homes. They're quality, but they're not, they don't have the giant ceilings. They've got, some date to them. But the big attraction out here are the beautiful lots, great big live oaks, half-acre level lots.
Okay, half-acre. Ranch style or two-story?
It's ranch style.
All right. Anything else, Kevin?
Let's go.
Hey, John, listen in, and we'll try to answer that question for you.
Yes,
it's a broad question.
It is a broad question, but that's fine. We like to talk about big subjects. John. We spend a lot of time talking about Brushy Creek, Cat Hollow, and then are the smaller lot production neighborhoods that are close to this, and then there are bigger. He's on the half acre, and there are 1 acre lots not too far away. But this area we spent a lot of time talking about on our radio show several years ago when when 620 became 45, and this is a new section of road that passes by these subdivisions which is 45. We have a saying here that location is fixed. You can't move location, but you can, by changing the way that traffic patterns work, you can change the driving time to get to major employers and to get to retail. And that's one of the things that hit these neighborhoods, these cluster of neighborhoods, very significantly with that road improvement. So I think he said he'd been there for some time. So that big bump in value has happened, and he's right. This is a time when these are neighborhoods where fixed up or flipped, the flippers are active in these neighborhoods, particularly in the smaller lot ones, but his too. And he can look, there's a good enough data set that we can look for comps that have been fixed up or new construction in that submarket and compare them to those that haven't been fixed up to start to get best practices for
what's the delta between the two?
Right. So we always, when a caller calls in and says, should I do X? We say, does your neighborhood, does the median average home in that neighborhood have X? Or at a minimum, are there 3 or 4 things that have sold in the last 180 days in your neighborhood that have that X item? If there are, and we can show that there's value there, then they will add value. But,
so let's say that the houses that aren't fixed up are selling for, X amount of money, and the houses that have been fixed are selling for the same X amount, right? There's no need to fix anything up, right?
Correct. And you might find that in a neighborhood where the land value is almost the value of the improvements.
Right, which on a half acre is a very good portion of it, right?
Possibility.
So, but then if you say, listen, if it's if the unimproved properties are X, right?
Right.
And then the improved are Y, but there's only $30,000 different there. Then you got to be a little bit careful how much money you're throwing into, because you don't want to throw 40 to get 30, right?
Right. Now, this is a submarket where there still are some leftover 10 and 15 acre parcels that will every once in a while pop up, and they'll be subdivided and big custom houses are being built. So there are high-end comps in this neighborhood and close by in this submarket. So most likely he can be pretty liberal on what he spends and fixed up, and he probably will get more than 100% return on that in this neighborhood, because that lot size is something that today we don't build affordable housing on half acres. The housing that is being built now on large lots like that is generally going to be $750 and up in this submarket.
So how does he identify the types of upgrades that he should be doing on his house? Would he go to, quote unquote, interview the new construction houses out there to see what they have?
Yeah, he certainly could walk through those and take a look at them. And then there are, I could go out and take a look at his house. We could spend some time, and this is for any radio listener, but walk through and talk about what are some of the rules of thumbs that flippers look at when they initially assess a property. But there are some tricks. Some of the tricks are to walk and look at what are the clues that can tell someone that this is a 35-year-old house. And John, you might walk in and say, well, those doorknobs are brass. This must have been built in the 80s.
There's popcorn on the ceiling.
There's popcorn on the ceiling. So we're making a list. Okay, change the doorknobs. Okay, remove the popcorn. So if you slowly delete all of the clues as to when the house was built, then it can seem to be much newer.
It is, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of those things don't cost too much money.
It's like plastic surgery for an older star in Hollywood.
Yes. Maybe makeup.
Yeah,
plastic surgery might be getting into, we need to blow some walls out here.
Yeah, right.
But that's the thing. And so he's in a good neighborhood to spend some money on the house. Let's think of another example. There could be a newer production neighborhood that's only 10 years old, and all the houses were delivered with laminate countertops, and the caller said, should we put granite countertops in? Would this be something that we could make some profit on? The general advice might be that, you could spend $7,500 on granite countertops, and yes, it would add some value to the house, maybe $5,000 to the value of the house. And then we look back and see what was the net happening in our pocket. We lost $2,500 on that upgrade. So that's the case where the median in that neighborhood we're pretending to describe here doesn't have the comps to support that much higher value on the full value of the granite.
No, as I know you've talked about on the show before, I think that the size of his lot will probably also tend to mitigate any of the mistakes to the upgrades too, because that's probably where the majority of the value is on that house, right?
I think it's, pretty safe bet it's going to be half or more at least.
Yeah, and I guess you can mow the lawn or whatever, but it's not going to change the size or shrink it or anything, right?
But, that's funny, and you're right. But oftentimes if you pick up one of those magazines of top 100 things to invest in, and, only 5 of them actually give you 100% return, almost always landscaping is at the top of the list.
Well, if you can't get them out of the car, you can't get them in the house, right?
Well said.
All right. 512-836-0590. That's 512-836-0590. If you'd like to be a part of the show, this is the Real Estate Zone. And we're live here every Saturday from 3 to 4 p.m. right here on News Radio KLBJ. You can also check us out on YouTube, I think. Yes, Jared, we can. Jared, our social media videographer, photographer, guru, who's over there in the corner.
He's agreeing to actually all of that.
Yeah. He's everything I say he's agreeing to. So we're up on YouTube. If you'd like to watch some of our video podcasts, you can actually check them out up there. Just do a search for the Real Estate Zone, or my name or Kevin's name. It's Bown like town for Kevin.
Bown like town.
That's right. All right. Speaking of the phone lines, we do have them open. 512-836-0590.
Got some texts. But,
Let's go to Mary first.
Okay,
Those
great.
texters can wait.
Okay.
Hey, Mary, thanks for calling. You had a question for us.
Yes, I'm curious when a duplex is being sold that has a common party wall, and Travis County Property Appraisal District considers and applies in their consideration and calculation of property taxes for that duplex with the common party wall. They include single-family homes that have recently sold in the area in the group of comps to calculate the property taxes.
So let me clarify the property type, though. You said it's a duplex, so it's 2 units on one lot, but then it shares another wall with another property?
It's a duplex. Has a common party wall, which is required by the city of Austin.
So it's just a straight
2
duplex.
unit,
It's just a 2 unit. Okay.
Yes, number 1 and number 2. So given that apples maybe apples to apples or apples to oranges, but then I hear from a realtor or realtors that when trying to sell it, as the sellers that we are, when we try to sell it, that what can be included in his calculation of the value to put out there on the market value, it has to be similar properties.
So Mary, I will tell you that the way that the taxing authority appraises properties compared to the way as lenders like we do are the appraisers who we employ, right, who do it under Fannie Mae standards is different, right? As a lender, I'm looking to see what the value is in case you default if you buy it and I have to turn around and sell that property. I want to make sure the value's there. So whenever you go to sell a property, what are you going to look for? You're going to look for comparables, right? And comparable means apples to apples. If you're a duplex, then we're going to look at other duplexes in that area. If you're buying it as an investment property, we actually may even look at rental, do the rental analysis on it also. But we're going to be looking at duplexes that are similar age. If they're not in similar age, there could be a deduction or an increase in the value on the comp. Where it is, how close it is there. But the taxing authority does it differently than we do it as lenders because there's 2 different, there's 2 different mindsets there.
Okay. One last question that I got to go to. So how about finishes? How about the fact that this particular new one coming on the market to be sold has much higher finishes? Floating stairs, for example, that the others don't have. A larger, 900 square foot backyard on each side. Enclosed garage with 5 parking spaces compared to some of these other units in the area that you can reach out and touch, your neighbor 8 feet away across the property line, every single side of it. How does that work? So what do I say to the realtor?
Yeah, so the fastest way, and let's talk about the real market value for a second, set aside the appraised value, that real market value on multifamily is generally going to be determined by the income approach. So we're going to look at that asset and see how much income can it generate. And all of those things that you just listed, the floating stairs, the big backyards, the attached garages, all of these will have an impact on how much rent you can get compared to the other ones on the street. So you should be able to demonstrate, hey, the other ones on the street rent for $1,200 a month. Mine rents for $1,650 per month all day long, and that additional income will yield into a much higher valuation of the total asset. Yeah, for you.
Okay, so I bring up the income. What'd you say? What'd you call it? The income.
It's called the income approach when valuing investment properties. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for calling.
Now, let's also be clear, though, that they're also going to use comparable sales. And she's
and this is a funny thing, right? Duplexes are super fascinating because some people are buying a investment property and they only care about the income approach.
Right.
Some people are buying it to live in one side and they definitely care about the comparable approach and they do care about the finishes, and those are distorted. Like that user buyer thinks about value very differently than an investor buyer does. And it gets even more complex in that it is possible to create a 2-unit condo regime and split those into 2 sellable units. And so depending on
you're in the right area.
We didn't find out what neighborhood she's in, but this does matter. If she's in very central Austin, it could be worth, there could be a whole nother way of valuing it that could yield a much higher value splitting them up.
All right, guys, you're listening to the Real Estate Zone. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take more of your phone calls. And Kevin, I'm going to pick your brain a little bit. I'd like to understand the difference. I'd like our listeners to understand the difference between single-family investing and multifamily, and what are the differences if you're thinking about being an investor? Why would you look to a single-family or why would you look to a multifamily? What are the differences there?
Okay,
guys, you're listening to the Real Estate Zone. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the show. This is John McClellan, local mortgage banker. Kevin Bown, local real estate broker. We're here live every Saturday from 3 to 4 p.m. right here on News Radio KLBJ. Don't forget our new YouTube. Do we have a channel, Jared? It's the Real Estate Zone. We have our own channel now. On our video podcasts are up on YouTube for your viewing pleasure and listening pleasure. Now they can see, what we actually do wear. We didn't wear our tuxedos today.
No.
That's
or
every
pajamas. We have to stop wearing.
Yeah, somewhere in between. Well, maybe. Yeah, hey, before we go to what I was asking about a minute ago about investment properties, single family and duplexes, let's pay attention
Couple
to
texts.
people on text.
Texter, I'm a cloud engineer from L.A. and just bought a new home in Willow Run off Grand Avenue Parkway in Austin, but in Round Rock ISD. How is this area doing? We're between the 1, the 35, and the 45. Also, how does being a few exits from the domain factor into our price?
It's called MOPAC, by the way.
Yeah, so we can help.
By the way, that means Missouri Pacific, which used to be before the Southern Pacific took it over. But anyway.
But that's right. So they could have left that first sentence off, I'm from LA, because we knew that they called it the 1 and the 45. Okay, now we're done making fun. But this area does have close proximity to the domain, which is exploding. We're seeing a huge amount of job density that is being created now, and it's only the tip of the iceberg. Most people don't know how much new job density is coming to this whole North Burnett Gateway area. So yes, that's a good thing moving through time. The Apple campus announcement is within a realm of influence of this neighborhood that this texter is asking about. That also is drawing new attention to what's happening at the Robinson Ranch, which this neighborhood is just on the other side of the Robinson Ranch from where Apple's going, and they're starting to sell and develop some of that property. So yes, in long term, they're going to be very, very happy that they bought in this neighborhood. There will be some intermediate times when there's a lot of new homes being delivered in the area that they'll be competing with. So there could be some little windows of competition, but overall, this part of town is getting a lot more attention.
Jobs. That's what drives housing. And when you have the domain, you have that 183 corridor, you have Dell just north of there, right off the tollway. It creates a perfect storm for this area, for that uptown, for the area that he's asking about. I don't see a lot of, other than new construction coming online, I don't see a lot of downside with this part of town at all.
Yeah, I agree. Another text. Hello, I live in Steiner Ranch for the last 25 years. I have plenty of equity, but the home is a split level, not good for retirement. I'm interested in moving to Old Lakeway, 1 story, hopefully on a golf course. Present home value is $425 and has just been remodeled. Please advise.
Is it not split level now?
Remodeled it into a single story. So this is actually a pretty popular move. We were over the break talking about how Steiner Ranch has some difficulty sort of commute-wise. It's a little bit of a traffic jam. And so people are relocating. A lot of people are relocating into Steiner Ranch, and a lot of people are relocating out both ways. So we help people move from Steiner into River Place just to get across one canyon and drop 18 minutes off their drive time.
Get them through 4 points.
Or move further out. So when they are at this retirement age and they're not having to concern about commuting, they can get more bang for their buck by just jumping out to Lakeway and still be within the same striking distance of all the things that they're used to. John, there are neighborhoods in Lakeway that have the same commute time into employment in Austin as being in the middle of Steiner. It's pretty interesting.
And it's not about distance.
It's not about distance. Just because of the time shift. So, I would say you're cooking up the right kind of thoughts, and we'll follow up with you after the show. All
right, let's go to the phone lines. Hey, Jesse, you had a question for us.
Yes, this situation is occurring where you got a tenant and he leased the property and paid first and last month's rent in advance, and then 3 years down the line, each year the rent goes up $100. So the rent is $300 more at the time that he decides he's going to leave the property. The end of the third year, he's given notice, all that's property, so he's not paying his last month's rent because he prepaid that. Is he obligated to pay the shortfall because the rent is actually that he prepaid less than the actual rent he's paying? I'm just curious, how does that shake out?
Yep. Good question. It depends. So if the way you're describing it and how we'll presume that you're the landlord and that you understood what he paid was the first month's rent and the last month's rent.
Then the initial lease.
Yeah. So if it was worded, if the initial lease said, and towards the last month's rent, then he would be responsible for that shortfall. Now, quick aside, you have to very carefully read how that money was treated, because more often than not, we're collecting first month's rent and then a security deposit, which is equal to 1 month's rent. In that case, he would still pay the last month's rent and have that credited as a security deposit. So we're going to have to actually look word by word to see how it was written in that first lease.
Well, it was first and last month's rent plus the security deposit. So,
hey, Jesse, I hate to cut you off, but I'm going to put you on hold so Kevin can talk to you, okay? But we got to take, not just a break, we got to go. Guys, thanks for listening to the Real Estate Zone, and we'll see you next week.